Hello and welcome to episode 135 of My Circus, My Monkeys. Most of you are done or almost done with the spring term, so perhaps you have a bit more bandwidth to stop and reflect. But whether you're excited about the summer downtime or ramping up for your busy season, it's always a great time to be less stressed. And today, I want to walk you through a way to deconstruct the things that are causing you stress so you can actually make those things less stressful in the future. So keep listening. We've talked about the impact of stress many times on the podcast. And in a nutshell, chronic stress is not helping anyone, not you, not your team, not your students, no one. In fact, it kind of messes up everything. And that's why I talk about it so much. Yes, we live in a world where stressors seem to lurk around every corner, but that does not mean they are inevitable or that there's nothing you can do to mitigate them. And that's what we're going to do today. So the very first thing you need to do is pick one thing that stresses you out. And for those of you who have trouble deciding, it doesn't matter what you pick. There is no wrong answer. I'm going to walk you through how to deconstruct any stressor. So what this is about is really getting comfortable with the process. So something simple like Brenda is always 5 to 10 minutes late to work and it drives me nuts is totally fine. And in fact, that's what I'm going to use as my example throughout this episode. Basically, if someone or something causes you stress in some way, it will be useful for our purposes. Now, if you're listening to this on the go, I would encourage you to sit down later and go through everything again when you have longer to reflect and can write things out. Thinking is a great first step, but when we write things out, it helps our brain better process the information. And in fact, I have created a worksheet to help you do just that. And if you're already on our mailing list, you will get it in this week's newsletter. And if you're not, you can both get on our newsletter list and get the worksheet using the link in the show notes. Okay, now that you've chosen your stressor, let's deconstruct. Step one, you have to uncover why this is stressful for you. The first thing you're going to do is really figure that out. It's easy to get overwhelmed by the stress response itself, that you don't actually know why that thing really bothers you the way it does. You just know that you hate it and you wish it would stop. And you might be thinking, well, blank is inherently stressful for everyone. I mean, who isn't stressed out when an angry parent calls or when you have to do your taxes? Yeah, there are some things that many people find stressful, but I guarantee there are folks who don't mind talking to angry parents or doing their taxes. In fact, some people might actually enjoy that challenge. Now, how can you be? No, how can that be, you ask? Because we all have different talents, knowledge bases, and skills. And what's stressful for you might be easy for someone else, and vice versa. Ultimately, the thing that causes any situation to be stressful is your ability to confidently navigate it. So, what makes the thing that you selected stressful for you? I'm going to lead you through a few prompts to help you figure this out. First, what stories do you have around it? Now, we've talked about stories before, aka your beliefs. And very often, it's the stories we have about a situation or a person that is what makes them stressful for us. Now, there are 3 types of stress: physical, chemical, and emotional. And it's the emotional type that typically gets in our way. Our stories fuel our emotions and kick us into a stress response around what we believe is happening. So, for example, this business with Brenda being late. What beliefs might you have about punctuality that is causing the stress? Do you think being late means Brenda doesn't care about her job or that she's lazy? Do you have stories about your role as a supervisor? Like Brenda being late means you are not doing your job. Or maybe you're worried that other employees are judging your abilities because they also see her coming in late. Or maybe you worked with someone in the past who was always late and had other negative characteristics. So you are projecting your feelings about them onto Brenda. Now, I know this concept is a bit abstract. Our stories are housed in our subconscious, so they don't always seem obvious to our conscious self. So if you're wondering what stories you have around this thing that you've chosen, try telling yourself, hey, just calm down already. Blank isn't even a big deal. And there will be a voice in your head that immediately tells you exactly why this is a big deal. Those are your stories. Now, once you know what those stories are, you can start to assess whether or not they're useful or even true. And as you're assessing these stories, keep in mind this is not about justifying your feelings or trying to find an excuse to get rid of them. It's about honestly assessing the things that might be driving your feelings about the situation. And these stories may accurately sum up the situation, but there is a very good chance that you're missing part of the picture. And you could straight up be wrong. It could be that no one except you cares that Brenda is late. Perhaps it doesn't impact anyone else or the quality of her overall performance. It's just that you have a story running through your brain that says being late is bad because of blank. And in this situation, making it less stressful for you is as easy as upgrading your stories and beliefs around it. Or maybe Brenda being late is indeed problematic. Her tardiness means other folks on the team, possibly including yourself, have to pick up the slack until she arrives. That is something that needs to be addressed from a performance management standpoint. And I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but if that is the case, then perhaps the stress isn't really about Brenda being late, but rather that you haven't addressed her behavior, right? I mean, she's just doing what she always does, and it's up to you as the supervisor to address it. And if that's the case, then look at the stories you have around your ability to hold your team members accountable or to confront others. So, as you can see, we can easily attribute our stress to a person or a situation, but the thing that's actually causing us the stress is our own ability to navigate that situation. I mean, if Brenda would just be on time, you wouldn't have to face the fact that you are not comfortable having these conversations or that you're not sure how to even effectively supervise your team, right? Okay, so the next prompt, as you think through why this particular thing is so stressful for you, is how are your talent themes or your talents showing up around this stressor? So we've also talked about talents and talent themes before, and specifically, I've gone over how your talents can be your biggest supervisor, your biggest superpower or your kryptonite. And that means your talents can absolutely help you get where you want to go, but they can also get in your way. And remember, your talents impact your thoughts and your beliefs and your behaviors. Your talents or talent themes are absolutely coloring your stories, as well as the behaviors around this particular thing. So think about how your talent themes show up around this person or situation. And an easy way to do this is to ask yourself these two questions. First, how might my talents be getting in my way here? And how are my talents helping me navigate this? So back to Brenda. If I think about myself, how might my talents help me or get in my way in this situation? So we're going to focus on how they get in our way, because in the second part, we're going to talk about how to kind of change that narrative. But first, let's assume I've assessed my stories and realized that Brenda's tardiness is, in fact, negatively impacting the team. Then how might my talents be contributing to my stress? Well, I have intellection, so it is not uncommon for me to retreat into my mind to run through how to handle a situation. But if I'm not careful, I get stuck there. In other words, thinking about dealing with the situation feels like I am dealing with the situation, even though I haven't done anything. So day after day, Brenda keeps coming in late, not thinking much about it, and I keep counting those things against her. I'm attributing my stress to her behavior when it's my own behavior that's the problem. In that situation, my intellection is getting in my way and adding to my stress. I also have adaptability, which allows me to be flexible and see the pros of many different options. So, on one hand, I might rationally know that Brenda's behavior is problematic for the team, but I can justify it in my head as to why she's coming in late, and why maybe it's not such a big deal. And this is especially true if I have a story about my abilities to confront her and this behavior. And because I keep wavering, the problem persists and continues to be a stressor for me, and in this case, my team. Now, just like with stories, step one is to identify which talent themes are getting in my way and contributing to my stress. Step two is to think about how I can use my other talents to make the situation less stressful. So, which of my talent themes might help me navigate the issue with Brenda? Well, I have strategic. And I know from a strategic perspective, allowing Brenda continue to be late is negatively impacting the team. And that is going to impact their engagement and productivity, which I absolutely don't want. I also have ideation. So having a conversation around with Brenda about how to solve this problem creatively is actually something I would enjoy doing. And that's much different than a discussion where I call her out and say, you just need to fix it, that sort of thing. So if I lean into those talent themes, I am more motivated to act and resolve the situation, dot, 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 therefore less stress. So the next thing you need to consider as you're deconstructing whatever's stressing you out is what knowledge or skills do you need to better manage this stressor? Now, again, this is not about judging yourself or finding yourself lacking, but it's about honestly thinking about where you need to grow. You know a ton of stuff and you have many, many skills. But the reason this person, thing, or situation is challenging for you may be because you don't have a crucial piece of information that would change how you approach it. Likewise, maybe you know what you should be doing, but you haven't had the opportunity to develop the skills that would easily allow you to implement it. Let's go back to Brenda. By this point in my life, I've had training on how to effectively manage my team's performance, and I've had the opportunity to develop my skills in doing so. So, looking at this situation, I might still be triggered by some inaccurate stories or default to a talent that isn't serving me, but I can pivot and lean into my training and experience. And this is a situation where clear expectations and accountability can both prevent and solve this issue. But when I started back in higher ed, no one shared this information with me, or quite frankly, even knew it themselves to help me learn how to navigate such issues. I would not have known what to do, and I would have been stressed because I didn't have an effective way to deal with it. And likewise, since I didn't know how to handle it, I couldn't start to develop the skills I needed to deal with Brenda or any subsequent Brendas that I encountered. So ask yourself, what information or skill would allow you to better navigate this situation? Remember, the issue isn't that you're not capable of dealing with this. It's that the you who doesn't know, again, missing piece of information, or know how to do a specific skill that finds this situation stressful. Once you gain that knowledge or develop that skill, you will be able to better navigate situations like this, and your stress will decrease. And this can be challenging because you often don't know what you don't know. And you sometimes know, all you sometimes know, is that there's a pain point. Now, it can be helpful to ask other people here, but keep in mind that if that person finds the same thing stressful as you do, they might have the same blind spots. So think about what you do know and ask yourself where the gap is in addressing it. If you've established that Brenda's tardiness is indeed problematic, then what don't you know or know how to do that's keeping you from addressing the issue? Maybe it's that you don't know what to say. Maybe the thought of confronting anyone, much less Brenda, makes you feel so overwhelmed that you can't act. Maybe you've got so much on your plate that you literally don't have time to address it. And those aren't excuses, they're hints about what you might be missing. And again, this isn't about judging yourself for falling short. No one automatically knows everything, and no one automatically knows how to do everything. This is about identifying what you can invest in. So, professional development. So you grow and are less stressed. So win-win. So that's really step one, is really just kind of assessing where you are, the gaps you have, the stories you have, and how maybe your talents aren't showing up in the best way for you. Step two is implementing it. So let's create a game plan. Now that you've had a chance to reflect on how your stories, talents might be getting in your way, and what skills or knowledge you might be missing, it is time to figure out what you're going to do. Reflecting is the first step, but do not get caught in your head like sometimes I do with my intellection. Put these new insights into action so you can upgrade how to navigate this stressor right now, but also in the future. And again, if you'd like that worksheet that I developed to help you do this, you can download it using the link in the show notes. So first, select the story that seems to be getting in your way. What is an alternate story that can help you with this situation? And I've discussed what this means in other episodes, but in a nutshell, what would allow you to either act to reduce the stress or to change your perspective that it's simply not stressful for you anymore? For example, let's say I determined that no one but me cares about Brenda being late. Instead of telling myself that lateness is a sign that Brenda doesn't care about her job, I could challenge that by remembering all the examples of times Brenda has demonstrated that she does care about her job. Armed with that new information, I can upgrade my story to something like, sometimes people are late, but as long as it doesn't interfere with their ability to do their job or negatively impact others, that flexibility will actually allow them to be more productive. Now, you're still likely going to default to the original story because it's been programmed into your subconscious for so long. But now that you have an alternate one ready to go, when it does pop up and you start to feel that stress coming over you, you can remind yourself that that's not what you believe anymore. Now you believe, insert alternative story here. So, second thing, now that you've thought about the talent themes that are getting in your way here, what talent themes could you lean into that might help you better navigate this situation? Select at least one of your talent themes and write down exactly how it can help you do that. When this stressor rears its ugly head, now you have a game plan to intentionally use that talent theme or themes that are more likely to help you in this situation. And just like with your stories, you may very well default to the talents that aren't so helpful for you. But the trick is to pivot once you realize you're going down that old familiar path. Finally, choose at least one thing from your reflections on your missing knowledge and skills. How can you learn what you don't know? How can you develop one of the skills that would allow you to navigate the situation more successfully? Maybe it's reading a book. Maybe it's connecting with someone who does know or does have that skill. Maybe it's going to a workshop. Maybe it's registering for the Supervisor Strengths Institute or another program. How can you upgrade your abilities and your knowledge? And again, knowing what you're missing is just the first step. You need to have a plan to increase that knowledge and develop those skills, or you're going to experience the same amount of stress around that issue. So be specific. If I need to develop my skills around holding people accountable, I might purchase the book, The Assertiveness Workbook by Dr. Randy Patterson, which is a book that I love and have used forever. But if all the unread books on my shelves have taught me anything, I can't just stop my plan with buying the book. I have to schedule time to read it and do the exercise in it. I need to give myself a deadline so that I make sure I'm not just putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. Plan out whatever you need to do so that you get into action around this new bit of knowledge or skill. When you take the time to work through these elements, you will find that you have the ability to turn the tables on things, people, and situations that you once found stressful. And the great thing is, you can do this with almost any stressor. Yes, there could be systemic problems that you can't necessarily fix, but you can change your mindset or remove some of the barriers that you didn't even know were there that were adding to your stress. So, as you're either winding down for the summer or ramping up, take a few minutes to reflect on your relationship with something or someone that has been stressing you out. Then create a game plan to upgrade your response to that thing or person. Doing so will allow you to feel less stressed and more empowered in your daily life.